Babysitters of redditors, what is funniest NSW scariest incident that happened when you babysit? Kid had a seizure. I thought he was throwing a tantrum. I said fine, you can have a cookie, but only one. Then his sister came and told me what was going on. Yeah, that wasn't fun. First time babysitting and his 12-year-old sister has to take the ropes and handle her brother having a seizure. Apparently they weren't all that rare and were pretty mild, but it sure threw me for a loop, especially since I hadn't been informed of this kid's epilepsy. That should have been pretty high up on the list of things to tell the babysitter. When I was 16, I was babysitting my cousin's 4-year-old. He and I were briefly speaking on the phone, and when I got off the line, I could not find her anywhere. Needless to say, I lost my crap and freaked the frick out. I knew that her favorite game was hide and go seek, so I started wandering around the house and playfully saying, "Where is she? Is she in the kitchen?" Silence. "Is she in the bathroom?" Silence. "Is she in the closet?" And from the closet I hear, "No." Toddlers. Cute and terrifying. Babysitting a 2-year-old girl that I worked with at the daycare I taught at. I put her in her crib and I go out to watch TV. When I hear something over the baby monitor, I turn it up and she's whispering, "Row, row, row, row," and then suddenly she screamed super loud. She kept doing this over and over, and it got creepier and creepier until I remember that we had just taught the kids in the daycare a new verse to row, row, row your boat. If you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream, and then everyone screams. I felt so bad for teaching her that. She must have freaked her parents out a lot. That's not even all the right words. Babysat twin 9-year-old boys a few years ago. The parents didn't even leave the house. They just locked themselves upstairs while I played video games and made dinner for the kids. I had to keep making the games louder to cover up the sounds that were coming out of the bedroom. A mixture of pain and pleasure. My own father showing up. He was an abusive, crazy alcoholic, and post-divorce my mom had a restraining order that basically should have kept him out of our lives. I babysat for the little girl across the street, and I picked her up from the bus and took her home until her mom got off work. When I went to wait at the bus stop one day, there among the actual parents was my dad. He was wavering on the sidewalk and staring into nothing and didn't even notice me. It was the bus that brought my younger brother home, too, so I was certain that's why he was there. He would occasionally show up and try to make amends, which basically consisted of him appearing at the house, weeping, grabbing us, and finally throwing a few punches if we didn't react how he wanted us to. It was a small town, so the police knew my family's situation and reacted quickly whenever we called. I grabbed the girl I watched as well as my brother as soon as they stepped foot off the bus. I told my brother to go in the house, lock the doors, and call my mom at work. My 2 older brothers were already home, so I got the girl inside her house and called my brothers from there. I explained what was going on, and we all sort of agreed to see if he tried anything. I saw the rest from inside the neighbor's house while I watched the little girl. Meanwhile, my dad, being a full-down drunk, didn't really seem to notice that my brother had already slipped past him and was still loitering at the now empty bus stop, looking around forlornly before finally stumbling around and up the steps of my house, where my brothers were inside. He knocked, shouted, and cried on the steps. After a short while, maybe 10 minutes, the police arrived and carted him away. I guess it doesn't sound all that scary, but this was the man who terrorized me, my brothers, and my mother for years before she was able to divorce him. He chased her around the kitchen with a hunting knife, beat her black and blue, and pointed guns at us, laughing when we ran because they weren't loaded. They were. As a 13-year-old girl in charge of a young child, I was absolutely terrified. I guess it doesn't sound all that scary. Yes, it does. That sounds terrifying. I used to babysit 2 boys, brothers, once a week. One was maybe 5-6 and the other was 2-3. The older one was super smart and always getting into mischief. He reminded me of Calvin from the comic strip. His behavior wasn't malicious and he was never really trying to cause trouble, but somehow, trouble always found him. I tried not to play favorites, but I really adored him and had a lot of fun babysitting him. The younger one was sweet and never misbehaved. Like most kids, they hated going to bed and getting them to sleep was always a long, drawn out chore. One night in particular the older one didn't want to go to bed and was pitching fit after fit. I got a little fed up, and as a punishment, he didn't get to sit in on story time. He naturally did not like this, so he told me, "I'm going to tell my mom you abused me." Scariest moment of my babysitting career. How do you defend yourself against a kid saying that? The worst part was the kid could tell he got a reaction out of me, so he started running around yelling, "You abused me. You abused me." I waited really nervously for the parents to come home and told them immediately what happened. Turns out, they'd been talking about bullying, abuse, bad touches, etc. in school that week, and the mom blamed it on that. I thought it was really weird that she'd dismiss her kid saying that so quickly, but then she told me, "Oh, don't worry, we nanny cammed you the first few weeks you babysat, we know how great you are with them." I was so weirded out, but the next time I went over the kid had made me a card saying he was sorry. The mom said she talked to him about it, and why it was so bad to make up those kinds of lies. I kept babysitting for the boys for a few years. They always overpaid me, so that definitely helped. I guess the nanny cam worked to your advantage in this situation, but I always thought they were so creepy. I mean, I understand the need for it, but I always just imagined myself picking my wedgie or nose and not knowing someone was watching it later. I babysat a boy who threatened to tell his mother I touched his privates if I made him go to bed. He was 9 or so. I called his parents and told them to come back immediately. Their son had said something very inappropriate. The whole time the boy was screaming no. It was a joke. Don't call anyone. His parents were furious. Apparently I was not the first sitter he tried this on. I refused to sit for them again. I feel bad that they never got to go out, but seriously, no way I was risking my butt. Asterisk. Also, I babysat for a couple that had a daughter with autism. They told me she was on the spectrum but not the degree of severity. I got the job from their nephew. We were classmates, so I assumed it must be fairly mild. I would take my homework and do it after feeding her a snack. At first it had to be steamed carrots with no seasoning. After a week or so she just wanted whatever I was eating. She was non-verbal but made her needs fairly clear through pointing and me playing 20 questions, and when her parents told me she liked to take walks, I started walking the neighborhood with her. I adored her. She was the single easiest kid. About 7 months or so into the gig I brought her back from a walk and her mother was home and frantic. She was freaking out of "Where did you take her?" and I told her we walked around the block with my dog. She loved my dog, so I brought it with me some days. The parents were fine with it. Turns out when they told me she liked walks, they meant she liked to walk around their backyard. She had terrible fear of leaving their yard home, which they did not tell me, so I was dragging the poor kid around the block on a regular basis. She only protested the first few times and we went back in. After that she would hold onto my hand tight and smile a little. I let her hold the leash. Chihuahuas aren't hard to walk. After a long talk with her parents I found out that I was doing everything wrong. Turns out she didn't like music. We listened to the radio while I did homework. She couldn't leave the yard without a meltdown. Dog walks, and she usually hated being touched. She would instigate hugs by holding her arms up to me and letting me hug her. Also, she apparently was very picky about her food. Unless I was eating, then she wanted what I had and would sit beside me until I offered her some. I was told to keep doing whatever I was doing and I got a $20 tip. I babysat her for about 2 years or so until we moved out of the area. Her cousin tells me she has started talking and is doing great with a job as a chat room tech support person. This is amazing. I feel like they should have tipped you a lot more. When I was 13, I had a summer job babysitting 3 siblings, a 5-year-old girl, a 2-year-old boy, and a baby boy just a few months old. One day, the 5-year-old really wanted to ride her bike, so I let her zip around the driveway for a while. When she was done, I told her to make sure she put her bike away in the garage while I took the boys inside. A few minutes later I heard some crying coming from downstairs and didn't think much of it, thinking she'd closed the garage door and maybe it was dark and she was afraid. When she didn't come upstairs, I went down to see what was wrong. Turns out she couldn't reach the switch to close the garage door. She stood on one of her brother's ride-on car toys, which rolled out from under her, and she fell and cut her leg on a pane of glass that was nearby. Blood, oh so much blood. She got some stitches and her leg was put in a massive bandage for a while. The parents didn't blame me, but to this day I've felt bad about what happened. I babysit this funny as frick British kid. Her parents are the absolute coolest and always told me to feel free to bring friends over. One night, I brought over my boyfriend, a bearded dude with long hair and a fear of children. She told me she was scared of him. I went upstairs to put her sister to bed. Before you guys say how mean I am for leaving her with someone she told me she was afraid of, I told her to join me and she refused. Flash forward 10 minutes later and I'm back downstairs where I find her braiding his hair and telling him she loves him. He was definitely more afraid. Another hilarious story with the same kid. One evening I was giving her a drink. She requested a bowl of milk and a bowl of water. She's a weirdo and I encourage that, so I gave them to her. She took them to the living room, put them on the floor, and asked me to make a video of her being a cat. Now I have this video on my phone of her drinking from bowls of milk and water and screeching, "Meow, I'm a cat." Her parents loved it and I'm pretty sure they forwarded it to the grandparents. Ha 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 ha. I can only imagine this young girl coercing this super brawny looking, terrified guy into letting her braid his beard. I'm picturing her backing him into the couch until he realizes it won't just swallow him up right then and there, and finally letting her assert her dominance. Someone hacked the video baby monitor while I was nannying once. I put the kid down for a nap and went down to make myself lunch. With the monitor set up on the kitchen counter, I heard some small noises from it, but assumed it was him moving around in his sleep. Then the guy hacking into it started singing Rockabye Baby in this creepy childlike voice. I ran up to the kid's room thinking someone had broken in and freaked the frick out. Took me about 10 minutes to realize it was coming from the monitor. Guy kept singing as I was panicking. The butthole. And I unplugged that crap. The parents flipped when I told them and got the cops involved. A few days later they found out it was the neighbor, some 30-something dude living in his parents' basement. Those things are notoriously insecure. When I was 21 I was a nanny for a 4-year-old girl. We had finished swimming at their country club and were in the locker room changing. As I was changing my top she looks at me and says my mom has those too. I asked her what does she have and she said breasts. I didn't say anything and just continued getting dressed. She paused for a second and then said except hers are really long. I had to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. My children, girls, call mine long mountains. Standing joke in our family now. Husband thinks it is hilarious. When I was around 16, I babysat for a family friend while they went to a dinner party. 4 boys, ages 12 to 6 or so. The family were dog sitting a huge Rottweiler, and the youngest boy had a pet gerbil. An hour or so goes by and I've exhausted most of my ideas to keep the boys entertained, so I take them out front to play home run derby. After a few rounds, the oldest hits the ball over the house and into their backyard, so I send him to get it. Minutes pass and he doesn't return, so I send the second oldest to check on him. After a few minutes he doesn't return either. I start to worry, so I take the 2 youngest with me into the house. As soon as I open the door, I hear screaming and start to freak. I run to the kitchen to find both boys in hysterics, crying on the phone. They're so worked up I can't understand what they're saying. That's when I notice the screen door to the backyard had been torn open. I walk toward the backyard and that's when I see it, their headless pet gerbil hanging out of the Rottweiler's mouth. I saw where this was going as soon as I saw Rottweiler and gerbil. Kept reading anyway. I've been working with kids for over 15 years, mostly as a nanny and man. I have seen some crap, but here's the one that scarred me for life. I was babysitting a brother, 9, and sister, 7, who always acted out pretty badly. They had the kind of parents who were more concerned with being their kids' buddies than being actual parents. It's a recipe for disaster. These kids were pretty disrespectful towards me and downright nasty towards each other. One night I was making dinner in the kitchen while they were watching TV. In the living room, I had a clear view of them and could hear them arguing about what to watch. When the sister refused to change the channel, the brother whipped out his dong, stood over her, and threatened to pee on her unless she changed the channel. When she called out for me, he changed tactics and full on smacked her in the face with his little wang. I just stood there, horrified. No idea how to address what just happened. I ended up telling him to pull up his pants and continued cooking. Because Jesus freaking Christ, that crap was way beyond my skill level. My friends were going out, but I was full of cold and didn't have the energy. I get a call from a neighbor asking if I could babysit that night. It was a no-brainer really. Just sit on the couch and watch TV. It's worth noting here that this was when Sky TV had not long come out in the UK. You could get channels from all over Europe too, and we didn't have it in our house, so it was a good opportunity to watch some new movies. Anyway, so the kids go to bed. I watch TV, and as the evening wears on, I start channel hopping and stumbled across Jaws 3 in German. I was quite enjoying the poor quality voices etc. Then drifted off into a deep sleep. I was woken around midnight by the owner, who told me it was time to go. However, Jaws 3 was no longer on the TV. It was a strange German porno involving 2 young ladies and a farmer. Now if that wasn't bad enough, on the floor next to me was a bunch of scrunched up tissues it'd been using to blow my nose on. I didn't even bother to explain. Babysat 6-year-old triplets. 2 boys, 1 girl. One of them was a very sweet autistic boy. When I went to check up on the other kids for a second, the other boy had gone up the stairs, took his diaper off, and smeared poop all over the walls. I went to go clean it up with diaper wipes and threw them in the toilet. I forgot that diaper wipes, these ones, aren't flushable. So lo and behold, I had crappy wipes overflowing out of the toilet bowl and half crappy stain walls. It was a crappy day. When I was young, I babysat a few local kids. It was easy way to get cash, and I was one of the oldest in the neighborhood. One of the kids had some kind of severe attachment issues. Once when I was using the bathroom, he broke the door slamming into it. He wanted to be in the same room I was, no matter what. His mother said that wasn't the first time that has happened. It was the last time for me though. Never babysat that kid again. I babysit my cousin 2 kids pretty much every other Friday night so he and his wife can have some time alone and out of the house. Their kids are 2 and 6 months, so they have video monitors in each of their rooms, and I pretty much watch the monitors and read or watch TV. Roughly a month ago I heard talking coming out of one of the monitors. It was a man's voice, and he kept saying over and over again, "It's okay. Go back to sleep. I'm here," and I could see a figure standing over the crib in the 6-month-old's room. I freaked out thinking someone has broken it. They had a break-in around Christmas time and the guy was never caught. I called the police and my cousin and crept upstairs with a knife to protect myself and the babies. No one was upstairs and both kids were sound asleep. Needless to say, I was thoroughly freaked out until the police and my cousin came out. It didn't help that they lived in an older home and everything creaked. Fast forward to last week, the exact same thing happened to my cousin during the day while the kids are napping. But since it was daytime, the video monitor gave off a better picture of the room. Apparently the one monitor in the 6-month-old's room switches over to the neighbor's monitor every once in a while. The voice I heard was that of his next door neighbor soothing their crying baby who is around the same age. I thought this was a ghost story. I'm very pleased with how it ended. Now I can sleep. Currently babysit 9 and 12-year-old boys. They have a lot of energy. Actually, they're just flat out nuts. And so there is constant roughhousing. One time, the 12-year-old got a little cut on his leg and started bleeding. I went to look at it, but he flinched and pushed me away. Then he proceeded to wipe the blood off of his leg, streak it under each eye, and hiss at me. The pay is good. I was an au pair in Germany for 3 months. I met the family online through a hosting website. They seemed likable enough. There was the mom, dad, and their little 4-year-old daughter. I find out when I get there that the mom is going to be on tour. She was a dancer for the musical Cats the whole time. So it was just the daughter and the dad and myself. Okay, I thought. Wasn't expecting that. But let's see how this goes. The dad turns out to be super freaking weird and inconsiderate. He treats me like a subservient idiot. He just disappeared on my days off. I can't tell a 4-year-old, "Hey, yeah, I'm not actually getting paid right now. So, yeah, you're on your own." So I basically never get any time off. He made dinner every night, but always made me eat leftover from the night before. And he would freaking pile this crap on my plate, and if I didn't eat it all, he would chastise me in the most condescending way about how ungrateful and inconsiderate I was being. Then I would hear him talking negatively about me to his daughter, saying weird things like no one loves Sisha Swata, just WTF kind of stuff. And that royally pee me off because I'm picking up this 4-year-old from school. I need her to trust me. I need her dad to not be a complete mindless dickwad and vent to his daughter if he didn't like me. So I'm 18 when all this is going down. I decide to write Mr. Butthole a letter about the fact that I deserve to be respected and that if he cannot respect me in his home, that I will no longer be staying there working for him. I went through all the situations where he had exercised his dowry and basically called him out and stood my ground. He got home late that night and I was awake when he found the letter. He read it out loud like 14 times, I kid you not, getting more and more pee off sounding each time. So that's that and I go to sleep. I wake up to him making breakfast for the 4-year-old and telling her once again that no one loves Sisha Swata. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now? So I call up some family members in the south of Germany. They call one of great uncles whom I've never met. 45 minutes go by and there's a knock at the door. I leave with my great uncle and hop the ice train to the south of Germany. I wound up working as a nanny for my uncle's kids there. I was babysitting a 2-year-old. He was playing on the couch pillows. Instead of a back cushion, my couch has a bunch of pillows. All of a sudden he started crying. He bumped his head on the corner of the couch, not sharp, and it started to profusely bleed. I grabbed him and sat him on the counter so I could see where it was coming from. Just under his eyebrow was gashed open. I cleaned it up as best as I could, gave him some children's Tylenol, and called his mom. They were able to glue it back together. I felt so bad. Oh, thank God you can glue children back together like toys. When I was about 14 I watched Over 2 Children for a summer. It was a pretty sweet gig as the 11-year-old girl always made lunch for us and was pretty self-sufficient and the 8-year-old boy just wanted to play video games and worship me. I am a little hazy on the details but one day I had to ground the girl for doing something. I knew this would get to her as she wanted to be out with the neighborhood kids. I go out front to see kids sneaking into the house from the 2nd story window. At this point I run upstairs, grab the 3 girls, shove 2 out the front door and take the one I watch over and put her in the bathroom and asked the 9-year-old boy to watch her. At this point there are 10-15 kids trying to get into the house to set her free like she is some political prisoner. I closed all the windows upstairs just to find more coming in the back door. I pushed the kids outside and locked the house, completely barricading the doors as the kids are banging on the house like a zombie nightmare. I called the dad at this point and told him what was up and that if he didn't show up I would need to call the cops. He showed up 15 minutes steaming mad at his daughter. I guess he had the adult I am taking over this situation because as soon as he got out of his truck the kids scatter like roaches. Nothing bad happened in the end and her parents made her call and apologize for steering that mess up. Crazy day to be making like $6 an hour. Like she is some political prisoner. LOL, this got me. Che Georgetta needs to be free. Viva la revolution. I let my parents babysit my daughters once. When we came home the kids were sitting close together in another part of the house. After my parents left it was explained to us that our 2-year-old spilled milk on the table and grandpa lost it. First and last time. Lots of older people have some seriously strange value of milk. My granddad used to freak out when people spilled it too, even though it's like 25 cents a glass. Had a babysitter when I was like 6 or 7 every few nights. She used to walk around in a thong and one time I asked if I could see her boobs so she showed them to me. Pretty sure if I was a rat bastard she could have gotten in huge trouble, but a pimp never snitches. Oh noodle face, you dog. When I was about 12 or so I babysat a couple of brothers across the street from me. Their regular babysitter lived 2 doors down but couldn't make it so I helped out. It ended up with me locking myself in the bedroom with the youngest brother who was about 6 would be my guess while the older brother tried to stab through the door with a huge butcher knife. That kid might have been 8 or so. That was definitely the last time I babysat for them. I told the other babysitter that he was on his own from now on. When I was 12 I babysat a 7-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. The boy went to the bathroom and then started screaming for me. So I go in and his pants are around his ankles with his head at his feet, bare butt facing the door and he's holding his cheeks apart. His sister walk up behind me and says you're going to have to wipe his butt, he can't do it right. I wiped the kid's butt and when the parents came home they were all, "Oh, we're so sorry, we forgot to tell you." My mom was kinda pee off and didn't make me babysit them anymore. That's perfectly normal child behavior. Maybe a little old at 5, but still normal. I was babysitting 2 little girls at their parents' house when I was about 15. We were sitting in the living room watching the Disney Channel when sudden the front door handle starts moving and someone tries to come in. I didn't lock the door after the parents left, so they were able to walk right in. Luckily, the family also had 5 dogs, all large breeds, that immediately jumped into action and ran towards the front door barking bloody murder. The front door only opened about half an inch before it was pulled shut. I jumped up and locked the doors and windows. It scared the crap out of the 3 of us. I checked to see if there was anyone outside running away, but didn't see anyone. I don't know what would have happened without those dogs. Dogs know. Dogs always know. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.